What size combs do you need? Fine, extra fine, super fine? What about double row versus single row combs? I'm going to answer these questions and I'm going to back it up by showing you real comparisons on different types of fiber on the different combs. My goal is at the end of this video, you'll be able to confidently select the right combs for your fiber. First, choose how large of a comb do you want. You have mini, regular, and large. All of these fit on the same holder, so you can mix and match different sets with different tine configurations if you want to. The mini combs are lightweight, so they're very easy to use and are perfect for smaller amounts of fiber. The regular combs are a perfect option for balancing working area and weight. If you don't know what to get, go with the regular combs. The large combs are great if you want to process fiber faster and you don't mind the added weight. So do you need single row combs or double row combs? Single row combs are great for any situation where you want as little waste as possible. Double row or triple row combs are great for processing any fiber where you're wanting to clean it up, remove the second cuts and debris, and make really nice quality top. Let's see what a big difference there is between the single row fine combs and the double row fine combs combing this identical Shetland fiber. I pulled out this fiber from the same area of the fleece and I weighed it on the scale to make sure that there were equal amounts. As you'll see in a little bit, this Shetland isn't in great shape, so it'll have a lot that'll need to be removed to clean this up. This will perfectly illustrate why you want a multi-row comb to get the waste out of a less than perfect fleece. I put this on black so you can easily see the fiber. The single row combed fiber is on the left and the double row combed fiber is on the right. You'll notice we got a lot less waste with the single row combs than we did with the double row combs. However, the sliver came out much cleaner on the double row combs because it was able to pull out all that waste, as opposed to the single row combs. There's a lot more debris and waste in this sliver than there is in the double row. So if our result looks that much better with double row combs or hackles, why would we get single row of anything? Well, there are a few situations where you don't want to filter anything out from your fiber. You want to pull as much off of your comb or hackle as possible. Perhaps the best example of this is when you're blending fiber. If we were blending already processed fibers, this is where single row combs or hackles excel because there is so little waste. Look how I was able to clean all of that fiber off of there. Check out how we got almost zero waste with the single row comb and how nicely it blended the fiber. This is why you get single row hackles for blending already processed fiber. You have very little waste and it does a fantastic job blending. Let's contrast that with the double row combs. Check out how much more waste is left in the tines with the double row comb. If this is already processed clean fiber, we don't want that. Both combs did an excellent job blending the fiber, but the single row combs on the left have just the tiniest wisp of waste, where the double row combs have quite a bit more waste. In both cases, I tried to get as much fiber off the combs as possible. So what's the takeaway? Use single row combs or hackles anytime you want as little filtered out of your fiber as possible, and you want as much of that as possible to be mixed in with your fiber. Use double or triple row combs and hackles in any situation where you want to clean up your fiber by removing the waste, debris, and second cuts out of your fiber and giving you that beautiful result that you come to expect from combs. I hope that was helpful in helping you understand the difference between single row combs and double and triple row combs. Now let's learn the basics about tine spacing. So what do you need? Fine, extra fine, or super fine? There's a few general guidelines to keep in mind when choosing your tine spacing. The coarser combs are going to be easier to work with, easier to comb through your fiber, easier to diz off the fiber, and produce less waste. However, if you've got really fine fleeces that are soft or have a really tight lock pattern, you're going to need to move up to an extra fine or a super fine comb. The finer your comb is, the more challenging it is to work through your fiber and to diz the fiber off. It'll also produce more waste. This is because the additional tines will hold onto the fiber so much better. However, unlike the coarser combs, fine combs will do a better job on all fibers. They'll do a better job on coarse fiber and fine fiber. The only caveat is the extra challenge working through the fiber and the extra waste. You'll get a better grasp of this as I test different types of fiber on each of the combs and compare them side by side. With each type of fiber we test, I'm going to weigh out equal amounts and make one pass for each test so we can accurately compare waste and performance. I'll also be sure to select the locks from the same area of the fleece so there are similar amounts of second cuts and debris in each sample. First, let's test some Shetland. This is a medium fiber with about a 5.5 inch lock. This fleece is in pretty bad shape It has some damaged tips that'll break off during combing, and it's pretty dirty. You can see how much debris is in that. The Shetland processed well on each of these combs, but as I mentioned earlier, as I moved to the finer and finer combs, it became harder to comb through the fiber and to diz it off. With the fine combs, we had a 24% loss in waste. With the extra fine combs, we had a 28% loss in waste. And with the super fine combs, we had a 32% loss in waste. Now this is quite a bit of waste, but you can see every last bit of that was needed. This is really nasty and needed to get that waste out to get to the good fiber. For the quality of the fiber, we can tell the fine combs didn't quite get everything out. And I only did one pass, I didn't go over anything and I didn't pick through it, so you could see the difference. The extra fine combs did an excellent job on this. It's only just a couple tiny spots I could pull out by hand. If I was being more careful during combing, I would have caught that as I was working with the fiber. You can see the best job was done by the super fine combs. This was also the most challenging. It was challenging to work the fiber back and forth and to pull the fiber off the combs because it held on to it so well. Now let's try some Romney. This is a 4.5-inch lock that's nice and open without any tight curls. This is a similar micron count to the Shetland we just tested. The fleece does have quite a bit of debris in it. However, the locks are not damaged, so the fine comb should do a great job combing this out with the least waste. Both the fine combs and the extra fine combs were very easy to process this Romney on. The super fine combs gave me a bit of hassle, a lot harder to work the fiber back and forth and to diz it off. Here on the left we have our fine combs with a waste of 22%. In the middle are extra fine combs with a waste of 44%. And on the right are super fine combs with a crazy 50% waste. There's a lot of good fiber that just wouldn't come off of here because this is such an open, coarse fleece, and that super fine comb held onto it so tightly I couldn't get all that off. So there's some good wasted fiber in the super fine. Now the performance of each of the three combs did very good job processing the fiber, but for this situation we would obviously go for the fine combs because we only have minimum waste, and this is definitely waste that needed to come out of it. And it cleaned up our sliver really nicely. Let's finish up by testing a couple of fine fibers. Here's a Merino with a 3.5-inch lock. This is a very tight, thin lock. Because of this, the fine combs are going to have a harder time holding on to it than the extra fine or the super fine combs. This fleece is also by far the most matted and dirty fleece I'm testing today. We'll need to pull a lot of debris out of this fleece if we're going to get a good quality sliver out of it. I think you'll be impressed with how well the combs will clean this up though. The fine combs are the fastest and easiest, but they aren't cleaning up the fiber very well. The extra fine combs are doing a much better job cleaning the fiber. The super fine combs held onto the fiber too well, made them a challenge to use. Here on the left we have the fine combs with a 32% waste. In the middle, the extra fine combs with a 42% waste. And on the right, the super fine combs with a 64% waste. You can see the fine combs did not do a good job combing this fiber up. There's quite a few knots, debris, and uncombed locks in here. The clear winner here is definitely the extra fine combs. The least waste while doing a very good job. Not having much waste here doesn't do us any good if it doesn't get all the debris out of the fiber. The super fine combs of course did an excellent job, but there's just a lot of excess waste here. Compare the difference between this beautiful sliver and what we took it from. Now we did end up with quite a bit of waste, but for a fleece this bad, the way we were able to get good fiber out of it is incredible. Last, we'll test our most challenging of the fibers we've combed today. This is the softest, cleanest mohair with a 10-inch lock. Because of how fine and slippery this fiber is, it won't be a contest. The super fine combs are going to way outperform the fine or the extra fine combs. Finer fibers are always more challenging to comb than coarser fibers, especially this one because it's such a long lock. However, this is going through the combs very nicely and without much waste. On the left we have our fine combs with a 6% waste. On the middle we have our extra fine combs with a 14% waste. And on the right we have our super fine combs and a 22% waste. As for the quality of the fiber, you can see that the fine combs did the worst job by far. A lot of uncombed lock structure, some clumps and some debris made it through. The extra fine combs did a much better job. You can see consistently throughout most of the sliver did very well, but it did let a few spots through, this whole lock that came through that I would have normally checked and corrected, but I let it go through for the example. a few little bits of clumps and some lock structures down inside here, but much better job than the fines by far. The super fine combs here on the right did an excellent job. You can see that combed out the fiber very nicely. Also, I was able to get a lot more consistent of a sliver off of the super fine combs because the teeth were holding on to the fiber more consistently. So I didn't get clumps that came off or areas that were too thin. You can see that the waste that these super fine combs pulled out was definitely needed. A lot of shorter bits, clumps, and vegetable debris in there. With a variety of combs in your collection, you can quickly match a comb to your type of fiber. However, if you're just starting with one set of combs, I suggest the extra fine combs. These will work with the widest variety of fibers. If you're mainly working with medium or coarse fleeces that are cleaner, go with the fines. It's going to be easier to work with and it's going to produce less waste. Or if you're working with a lot of super fine fibers with slippery tight locks, you will need these super fine combs. These are one of those combs that when you need them, you're super glad you have them. I hope this video was clear and helped you understand the basics about mini combs. If you have a question or you would like a comb recommendation, send me an email through my website. I would love to help. Our website's bamfiberworks.com, or you can click on the link in the description below. Subscribe if you'd like to see more content like this where I talk about everything to do with fiber processing. Thanks for watching. Until next time, I'll see ya.